September 13th, 2025. The dawn sky east of the Kolmus River split apart as the silence was broken by thunder. Emerging from the haze, a massive North Korean armored formation came into view. Over 160 upgraded T-90 tanks, 120 BMP-3 infantry carriers, and more than 90 KN-23 missile launchers advancing in tight formation. Overhead, 100 suicide drones skimmed the ground at 65 miles per hour, programmed to hit radar posts and sever communications before the main strike. From the tree line, Ukraine reacted instantly. Bayraktar TB2 drones rose through the fog, their laser-guided MAM-L missiles locking onto enemy heat signatures. Seconds later, French Caesar self-propelled howitzers thundered, hurling 88-pound shells of high explosive that ripped through the still morning air. This was only the beginning. With nothing but intelligence and ingenuity, Ukraine now faced North Korea's most elite armored assault in what could define the fate of its homeland. By 5 a.m., the dry plains east of the Kolmus River trembled as the T-92s with reactive armor led a 4-mile-long steel convoy. Behind the spearhead, 120 BMP-3 carriers and 90 BTR-82. As rolled forward, joined by more than 90 KN-23 short-range missile trucks locked and ready. Above them, a swarm of 100 suicide UAVs sliced through the mist at 65 miles per hour, all with a single mission to break the Ukrainian line west of Kolmus. Reinforcements waited. French Leclerc tanks and VBCI carriers guarded the flanks beside Ukrainian armor, backed by British Challenger 2 seconds and AS-90 artillery. The combined force exceeded 310 vehicles and 2,100 troops. From the hills, reconnaissance teams relayed infrared images to a command bunker buried 12 feet underground. Inside that bunker, Colonel Andriy Mykolenko monitored a glowing digital map. French Caesar batteries from the 4th Armored Brigade were already calibrated for counterfire. The enemy convoy crawled at 20 miles per hour, unaware that for 14 nights Ukrainian engineers had reshaped the ground, masking entire kill zones beneath straw and dust. At 5:38 a.m., seismic sensors planted weeks earlier detected the first tremors. The column was now less than 3 miles from Kill Zone Alpha. Mykolenko signaled the forward drone teams. Bayraktar TB2S lifted off, climbing to 1,500 feet to transmit thermal feeds back to command. The convoy pressed on at 22 miles per hour, unaware that its own drones were drifting off course. Ukrainian electronic warfare teams scrambled GPS signals. Some suicide UAVs crashed into empty buildings, others spiraled into fields. French command near Klashka received real-time updates from the front. Caesar guns tilted their barrels 3 degrees higher and fed new coordinates into the fire computers. Nearby, British AS-90 crews loaded high-explosive shells and synced their timers. Ukrainian Bodana howitzers locked onto targets along the ridge, ready for the first wave of fire. At 5:44 a.m., the first T-92s rolled into the outer ring of the minefield. Beneath the surface, TM-62 pressure mines lay buried 5 inches deep, spaced unevenly between remote detonated M200s connected to fiber optic lines stretching to 3 hidden firing stations on an abandoned farm. Ukrainian infantry teams armed with javelins and RGW-92s waited beneath camouflage nets, their thermal scopes and steel core rounds ready. The field seemed empty, yet every meter was calculated. Suddenly, a BTR-82 Amperes at the rear hit a TM-62, the blast ripping through its hull and sending a tower of flames 18 feet into the air. Flames lit the sky as Colonel Mykolenko gave the go signal. Within seconds, the first series of M200 mines erupted in sequence, throwing earth and steel into the air. A KN-23 launcher pitched forward as its axle snapped. Infantry spilled out only to hit wire traps and blast pits. Ukrainian drones painted their heat signatures as the Caesars and Bodanas opened up. The trap was set, there was no way back. The ground quaked again. At 5:47 a.m., a second ring of M200 mines detonated in a chain reaction. One T-90 was hurled into the air, flipping upside down before crashing onto a BTR-82 Amperes behind it. Flames soared 22 feet high, the pressure wave shattering glass more than half a mile away. Forward drones streamed thermal overlays to Caesar and AS-90 crews, who unleashed another synchronized volley that tore into the heart of the convoy. The second detonation ripped through the armored line, scattering debris across the fields. A T-90 caught the blast, flipping violently and landing upside down. The explosion lit up the horizon, shaking trees and bending metal. The pressure wave was so fierce it shattered roadside windows 2,600 feet away. Overhead, Ukrainian reconnaissance drones relayed heat maps to artillery teams adjusting for their next strike. The French artillery fired again, followed by British AS-92s whose 80-pound warheads struck dead center in the convoy. Shockwaves flattened supply trucks with thin roofs. Nearby, disoriented suicide drones slammed into friendlies in the ground. One KN-23 launcher ignited after taking a direct hit. Ukrainian Bodana batteries advanced their fire step by step along the convoy's path. Following the barrage, chaos rippled through the formation. Suicide drones collided mid-air while one missile truck erupted in flames. Ukrainian Bodanas shifted to walking fire, creeping explosions down the convoy's length. Each shell landed within a 5-meter radius, shredding vehicles and infantry alike. Within minutes, the entire forward column was engulfed in fire and smoke. From the left ridge, French VBCI carriers advanced, deploying squads at 10-foot intervals, moving between berms and irrigation ditches. On the right, British Challenger 2 tanks burst from the woods, firing depleted uranium rounds at 5,100 feet per second. A leading T-90 was struck and exploded violently, its turret catapulting 35 feet into the air before crashing back in flames. Ukrainian Oplot T-84 tanks surged from cover, crossing the low fields in a counterattack. Using the soft terrain to mask their hulls, they fired APFSDS rounds that struck 3 BMP 3 seconds in seconds. 2 detonated, igniting nearby munitions and dry grass. Panic spread as North Korean infantry fled westward under the barrage. The counterattack intensified. Ukrainian shells punched through the BMP 3 seconds, setting off fuel tanks and ammo crates. North Korean troops tried to regroup at a half-collapsed farmhouse but were pinned down by PG-7 VL warheads launched from RPG-7 tubes. Each shaped charge pierced over 900 millimeters of armor, blasting through walls and sandbags alike. Above the chaos, Bayraktar TB2 drones marked moving clusters. From 5,000 feet, operators launched laser-guided MML missiles, 4 of which struck directly among command vehicles, one being a mobile communications hub. The explosion formed a spiral of fire 28 feet high, erasing the entire command link in seconds. The rear of the convoy descended into chaos. Ammunition trucks ignited, fuel tankers burst into flames, and a rolling chain of explosions raced down the line. French Caesars shifted their fire toward the rear pocket, hammering trapped vehicles. Ukrainian FPV drones slammed into surviving BTRs, punching through steel and setting interiors ablaze. British infantry armed with NLAW missiles and L-7 machine guns pushed forward from ravines, covered by drones and French troops sweeping the canal zone. One North Korean suicide drone slipped through the jamming and struck a Ukrainian APC, tossing it 5 feet into a tree. The crew survived but were dazed. Ukrainian Shilka anti-aircraft guns immediately tracked and shredded the remaining drones with layered bursts. The North Korean center tried to pull back, but retreat was impossible. Roads had collapsed into craters, and hidden mines sealed every exit. A BMP-3 attempting to turn around plunged into a ditch 3 feet deep, snapping its suspension. Ukrainian gunners switched to airburst shells that detonated 20 feet above the ground, raining metal fragments downward. Thermal feeds showed enemy heat signatures vanish one by one. Ukrainian artillery now employed high-altitude air bursts, cutting off any hope of escape. Shells exploded 20 feet overhead, scattering molten shrapnel that tore through infantry hidden in trenches. Each detonation erased clusters of heat on the drone's thermal maps. South of the line, Ukrainian sappers crawled through drainage pipes and under barbed wire, preparing to finish what the artillery had begun. The elite sapper platoon closed in from the south, crawling through ditches and throwing RKG-3 grenades into tank engine blocks. 3 vehicles were disabled in seconds. Moments later, a central fuel truck was hit by a mortar, erupting into a massive fireball that bloomed across satellite infrared. Over 110 armored vehicles were confirmed destroyed or disabled. Smoke stretched for 2 miles across the plain. French drones verified the damage as Ukrainian units advanced to seize the high ground. Bayraktar TB2S circled overhead to ensure no reinforcements were moving in from the east. British and French officers coordinated a new artillery alignment. Ukrainian medics began dragging wounded North Korean soldiers from the wrecks as gunfire faded. At 7:46 a.m., drone footage captured a buried command vehicle near a collapsed barn. Infantry closed in, rifles steady, and found Colonel Ri Yong-hok, field commander of the entire assault, wounded but conscious. Inside the vehicle lay sealed orders, radio logs, and tactical maps. By 8:12 a.m., the last shell had fallen. Smoke coiled above the wreckage as initial reports confirmed at least 114 armored vehicles destroyed, 31 abandoned, and more than 230 troops captured, injured, or cut off. The entire attack force had been wiped out in under 2 hours. French and British teams assisted with drone recovery and forensic mapping of strike zones. With the battlefield quiet, Ukrainian engineers and Allied officers began assessing the damage. Smoke still drifted over blackened steel as drones hovered above, mapping the devastation. Teams documented destroyed vehicles, crater depths, and shrapnel patterns, confirming that the North Korean strike group had been completely neutralized. Engineers measured crater depths, blast radii, and fragment spread to evaluate the minefield's efficiency. The 2-mile stretch of terrain was littered with scorched turrets, melted wheels, ruptured fuel tanks, and crushed communication trucks. What had been intended as a breakthrough had turned into a trap with no exits. On a southern ridge, a Ukrainian soldier knelt beside a lightly burned North Korean conscript, pouring water into his mouth, no words, only the act itself. Drones above scanned for heat signatures but found only smoldering husks. Hours later,
to Moscow,
satellites showed that
it
same
was
road
a
painted
severe
black with ash.
embarrassment. To
Moscow, it was
Pyongyang,
humiliation.
a proof
To
of
Pyongyang,
overreach.
But to Kyiv, proof that terrain preparation and multinational coordination could erase the power of mass. Ukrainian General Staff later stated that no reinforcements had been pulled from other fronts, a complete tactical victory. French reports confirmed that Caesar artillery achieved 87% accuracy with an 11-foot margin of error. British Challenger 2 seconds scored 5 tank kills without a single armor breach. Kyiv called it a clean win. The lesson was clear. With layered Western coordination, even massed assaults could be shattered by precision. The narrator posed the final question. When mass meets precision, who dares to advance? Every field may be mined, every forest pre-targeted, every sky scanned by drones. Would you order the charge again? The screen faded to black with the words, "This is Shield Military, every strike has a story."